Okay, hello and welcome to the video. My name is Wade Daniel Smith, and in this video, I want to discuss the fact that the National Hurricane Center is now, for some reason, inflating the wind speeds of hurricanes for no apparent reason. They just did it a couple weeks ago with the one that hit Louisiana. By the way, I live in Louisiana, all right? They just did it a couple weeks ago with the one that was in Louisiana, in which they called it a Category 2 hurricane, even though there's no evidence that it had winds any stronger than 70 miles per hour plus, roughly 96 mile per hour 3-second gusts on land. They're now measuring the gust on land and then calling that the Saffir-Simpson scale wind speed, and that's not correct in Louisiana. All right. Okay, so the one that hit Louisiana a couple weeks ago, they measured a 96 mile per hour gust on land, which is the fastest wind they measured on land, and they called that a Category 2 landfall. And that is not how the Saffir-Simpson scale classifies hurricane winds. The Saffir-Simpson scale classifies hurricanes by the 10-meter 1 minute average winds, all right, which in that particular storm was no stronger than 70 miles per hour. It went straight, the eye of that storm went straight over this house, and we didn't even lose power in this house. All right. So it probably was not even a 70 mile per hour storm. It blew a few tree branches down, and that's all it did. So anyway, Helene was not a Category 4 hurricane landfall, and it was not even a Category 3 hurricane landfall, and it probably was not even a Category 2 hurricane landfall. The strongest wind anyone recorded out of Helene was a 108 mile per hour 3-second gust, at least as far as what Fox and the Weather Channel and AccuWeather are all reporting. Unless I missed one, the strongest that they recorded is a 108 mile per hour 3-second gust at the 10-meter level. Well, that is Category 2 if it had been sustained, which it was not. That was a 3-second gust. That tells me that the sustained hurricane winds were only Category 1 at landfall. All right, because the strongest wind they've recorded was a 108 mile per hour 3-second gust. To be a 140 mile per hour Saffir-Simpson landfall like Ida was a 148 mile per hour Saffir-Simpson landfall with a 188 mile per hour 3-second gust. In order to actually be a 140 mile per hour sustained landfall, it means the winds had to average 140 miles per hour for an entire minute, and then you would have had a 180 to 190 mile per hour 3-second gust at Cedar Key and Perry, Florida. So they are not recording hurricanes correctly. This season they have exaggerated every hurricane they have measured with hurricane hunters by at least a category or two, just for the sake of it. Helene was not a Category 4 landfall from anything that I saw broadcast by the National Weather Service. By the way, I was watching on tropicaltidbits.com. You can watch the Hurricane Hunter raw data transmitted live every 10 minutes. All right. And I watched almost every 10-minute frame of it, and I went back and looked at the raw data, and they never had Category 3, much less Category 4 winds in the hurricane. What they were doing is averaging flight level winds, 10-second flight level winds with 10-second surface level winds, and calling that the sustained winds of the hurricane. And that is not a sustained wind, and that's not a proper way of averaging the hurricane winds. The reason Helene did so much damage is because of the sheer size of the circulation and the fact that it merged with a trough, a cut-off low trough actually, and formed a superstorm. It had next to nothing to do with the wind speed of the hurricane. Next to nothing. If we're gonna ever have any real science in the United States, how about let's do real science instead of exaggerating stuff? And why do they exaggerate stuff sometimes, and other times they don't exaggerate? I don't know, but it's like they have some kind of political agenda for fear mongering. See, I was in the eyewall of Hurricane Ida, but I live about 50 miles inland, so it had decayed to 110 sustained with a 150 gust by the time it reached this house. All right. Um, Whereas at the coast, Ida was confirmed at Port Fourchon, Louisiana, to be 148 sustained with a 188 gust. So if Helene's strongest winds at landfall were at 108 mile per hour gust, then it needs to be downgraded to about an 85 to 90 mile per hour category 1. All right. And Ida needs to be left the same. Or otherwise, the NHC is claiming that none of their anemometers survived winds stronger than a 3-second gust of 108 miles per hour in Florida, which means Florida must be incompetent for some reason, because Louisiana knows how to build them up to 200 miles per hour. So, you know, something's wrong either way with the NHC data, or at least their reporting of the NHC data. All right, that's the end of the video. That's all I'm going to say is they're completely wrong and ridiculous.